Welcome to the third episode of the Walk Foundation's College Football Playoff Podcast. Today, we're honored to be joined by our guest, Seyi Oladipo of the Boise State Broncos. Seyi, welcome to the show.
Man, thanks, Jacob, for having me.
Congratulations on a great season. The Boise State Broncos had an historic season and capped it off with the Mountain West Championship, and you had a great performance in that game. And so, just taking a look back at the season, how would you describe your experience?
Honestly, I think the experience is honestly best described by like a work of God. Like it was honestly a year. Like if you look at this season, you have to go back to even last season where I think we had started off the season 5-5. Like it's looking like we're not going to go to the Mountain West Championship. We had a coaching change, and then all of a sudden things start turning around, and then the pieces start falling into place that we end up being able to go to the Mountain West Championship, and then we go. And then we win. And then this year, it's like, okay, every year, like our coach came, he's like, every year we're favorited to win the Mountain West Championship, but we haven't won it every year. So it doesn't matter what the preseason rankings say. You got to go and do it. And then as every game won, so we went to Georgia Southern. It wasn't pretty, but we found a way. We won. We went to Oregon. We fought hard, came up short. But every week, our coach just emphasized, you got to play championship football every week. And even though it was ugly in some games, and honestly, we shot ourselves in the foot, it was like, all right, we kept on pressing on, and it was like, all right, cool. We thank God. We made sure to thank Jesus for the victory every game. Like every game, my coach gets in the locker room, it's like, thank you, Jesus, for the victory, because we thank him for the gift. We thank him for the victory, but we give him all the glory for it. And it was a blessing, honestly, to see like even that Mountain West Championship. Like we saw guys that were supposed to have season-ending injuries return, and it's like, oh, they were working in the background, and it was being able to see the love that was truly within our team, that guys willing to put themselves on the line for the sake of the team to be successful, and for all to come to fruition in that championship was just awesome to see.
It definitely was awesome to see. I typically don't do this, but I'm going to give our listeners a little bit of a backstory as to why we're here today. So a few weeks ago, I noticed that Seyi had followed the Walk's Instagram account, and so I followed back, and we were messaging back and forth, and he ended up sharing a good bit of his testimony. But he had just expressed at that time that he was had this desire to share his faith publicly and let people know what God had done in his life. And so it was really cool to follow the end of the season, and as you mentioned, like some of the games, there might have been a little bit closer than, you all had hoped for, but it was just so cool to see you guys continue to pull it off, and then in the conference championship game, really play one of your best games of the year. Against UNLV, you had an outstanding play, a lot of outstanding plays, but one in particular when you had the chase down on the 86-yard run. Can you kind of walk us through that play?
So in that play, we had misaligned, and we had our end in the wrong spot, and it was just like, okay, I was playing my responsibility like how I thought it was supposed to be played, and then all of a sudden I see the running back dart through the hole. And honestly, that game with UNLV, they're such a good team. We respect them so much that we know that you can't just give them anything. So I see him take off, and with everything like I had in me, I just kept on running. Like I just took off and I just kept on running, and then I kind of started to feel myself get closer. And I was like, all right, cool, don't give up, just keep on going. Like I think towards the end, like you start to like, he's tired, I'm tired, but it's like, all right, cool, for the love of my team, like you got to sell out and give us a chance. Like our defense lives by, like when you get in the red zone, it's 3 or nothing. Like we'll give up a field goal or we'll give up nothing. Like we don't want a touchdown. So being able to just honestly run the fastest I'd ever seen myself run, I like call it now where it's like, so like a little like backstory, like for me, every time I sign something, since I'm number 23, I put Colossians 3:23, just like do all things unto the Lord, like not as you do unto man, but unto the Lord. It's like, all right, if I were to say how hard I ran, I was like, I think I was running for God. Like God was like, all right, cool, you got to put everything you have on the line because we believe in our team. Like we're all called here for a time as this, and how much I really love my teammates was what that play honestly showed. And the best part about it was like 3 or nothing. They didn't get any points down there. And though like we are as a defense, we held ourselves to a high standard, and we wanted them to not score at all in that game. But the fact they didn't score on that drive after that, I say like I guess you called it exuberant effort play, was just a show of how a team really works together. Because I put all I had to get him down, and then my brothers came on that field because I got off the next play. I was tired, but my guys came on the field and got him to third down. I came back on. I think we got a sack or an incomplete pass, and it was like, yep. And our offense just drove down the field. I don't know if I don't think we scored that drive, but it was like, okay, cool. We got ourselves out of that situation. They didn't score. We were playing like a true unit as a team on special teams, offense and defense. So that's honestly what came to my mind in that play, just run.
Yeah, yeah, no, I love that, and just recognizing in that moment that it's not you, it's God that gives you the strength to make that play, and the talent, of course, and so that was a really amazing play. Rewinding, you grew up in Aurora, Colorado, is that right?
Yes, sir.
So can you take us back to maybe childhood, and like did you grow up thinking that you might play football at the highest level?
Honestly, I think from a young age, I had the dream of playing college football. And I guess like go back to like my little story. So my parents immigrated from Nigeria. My dad first, then my mom. I have an older brother, but he was born in New York. And then my dad built his house and then had me and my sister in Aurora. So I lived in the same house my whole life. Uh, I didn't play football until third grade, and it was out of me just being the little brother trying to copy his older brother. Like my big brother wanted to play football with his friends. I was like, all right, cool, I'm gonna play football too. Started out as an O lineman, and then like growing up, I was a big fan of like Christian McCaffrey, and he was at Stanford at the time. So I was like, all right, cool, I'm gonna go to Stanford. Keep in mind, I didn't know Stanford was a big like the whole school part of Stanford. I didn't know all that, but I wanted to be a running back, and then but I started off as an O lineman. I was O lineman, like every O lineman wanted to be a running back at one point, and then I started to like honestly start working towards it, and I slimmed out, went from O line to D line to like a linebacker, and then I started playing running back on my team. And then it was like I was just playing football to have fun. I was playing with the team, like I was at a lower level, and then my dad kind of pushed me to that next level. And he was like, "You got to play at the highest level. Like you're good enough." Like, and I knew I was good enough to play there. It was just I want to play with my friends. Ended up moving up to a higher team where the coach was like, "Hey, like we have a running back, but we think you can play DB." And at that moment, I went to all these camps to try and play DB. And at that point, I started to realize, okay, DB's hard, but I can do this. And I was introduced to my now one of my best friends, Ty Robinson. His dad's name's Terrence. He played for Oklahoma State, played in the NFL. He was like, you could play at the next level. And I was like, that was my dream. Like Stanford was my dream. I think I started like kind of doubt myself, and I started being like, okay, like I'll go to like an FCS school. Like I think at one point I wanted to go to Cal Poly, which was like, all right, cool. Like it's a little lower, but still D1. I still I get my
It's close enough to where
exactly
Christian McCaffrey went.
exactly close enough. But it was like I'm not running back anymore. But I'm a DB. I kind of got caught in the way. Like high school came, and I started seeing a bunch of my teammates get their offers, and it was like, dang, like I'm going on all these visits, and I'm seeing all my friends get offers, like my teammates getting offered, and I'm just like, where's my offer at? Like I'm playing good football too. So I started to really catch myself like doubting myself, but also like it fueled my fire, and it's kind of crazy. One of my trainers from high school has the clip, so that play that happened Friday night where I chased the guy down happened in high school my junior year, where I chased the guy down. I don't remember how far it was, but that exact play got me my first offer ever.
Wow,
So it was like really
man, that is like full circle right there.
I was like, Bible. I learned something about the Bible the other day. It's like how the Old Testament is written in a chiasm, where it's like the beginning, like the first thing matches the last thing, the second to last thing. I was like, hold up, like is my life written in a chiasm? I was really, I was like nerding out, but it was really cool, and I was like, whoa, like the fact that it was like mirror image, like the same sideline, like same chase down. Obviously, I'm looking a lot faster now. I'd hope so, but it was it was really cool. So that got me my first offer, and honestly, it was cool. Like that got me my first offer, but this one got me my second ring, but the first one that sealed a season in history for a team that truly deserved it. But yeah, that's kind of like a little walkthrough, like my little history.
And I like what you said there about how that play helped lead you guys to like lead your team to something significant. I know it'd be easy for you to point to like receiving the MVP trophy, and but I just love that you have the humility, um, to first think of the team and not even think of yourself. Um, so towards the end of high school, you had a couple offers, and so what made you choose Boise State?
So I think that is definitely a testimony my parents love to share. And it's the fact that when I was, so COVID happened the second semester of my junior year. So it happened March. Like that's when COVID really hit. So it was after the basketball season, and I was getting ready to go on these official visits, and then COVID hit. So I didn't get official visits, but I still was like talking to schools. They were still recruiting me, but I'd never been to any of these places. Like prior to me coming to Boise, I only knew about a blue field. I didn't know geographically where we were, but I was like, all right, cool. Like Boise wins. So then I think my final three came down to just like relationship wise. And I had a good relationship with the coach here, a great relationship with Nevada's coach, and then Kansas because that was my only Power Five offer at the time. So me and my parents had done our research, and Kansas was kind of out because of we realized like they were kind of giving a lot of people offers. You don't want to get last minute said, hey, you can't come here anymore. So, and Boise was honestly really picky about who they offered. So me and my parents were like, all right, we have to go see these places. Like we had never been to Reno, but we'd never been to Boise. So we had driven to Boise, and I'd had a friend who had moved here because an alumni of Boise State also was an alumni of my high school. So my friend was living here. He was playing football here. So when I got here, I first got to see the city. Boise's a really pretty city. So then he showed me the city, and then my parents were like, okay, let's go see the school. As we were seeing the school, ironically, we ran into who would end up being my team doctor. And he was like, hey, you want to see the field? Like, and he started speaking highly of Boise State and who the program is and how they develop people from boys to men. Like people leave here and they forever have a family. So then we saw here, we went to Reno. Then me and my parents just prayed because we had a really good relationship with the Reno coaches. Like of coaches that really did the relationship piece really well, Coach Norvell and Coach Wheat knew me. They knew my family. They knew my siblings. But Boise State, they knew me well. But it was also the winning culture. My parents just prayed, and they were like, my dad tells me, he's like, I knew my son was going to be great here. Like God spoke that you're going to do great things here. I feel safe with you here. And like, yeah, so like when my parents looked at me and said, we feel safe with you at Boise, I made the phone call the next day to, at the time it was Coach Harsin, or it was Coach Franklin who put me on the phone with Coach Harsin. He was like, all right, you want to come here? He was like, yeah. And he was like, all right, cool. To make sure, like we don't take commitments lightly. He's like, call me back the next day. Like, you think on this. Don't just commit because of a spur of the moment. Like, call me back tomorrow if you really want to commit here. And I committed, and then that's all she wrote. Like, well, all he wrote, if that makes sense.
I like that. Um, it sounds like Boise State really is not just looking for like what's best for their program, but what's best for the athlete too. Is that something that you felt?
Honestly, I think Boise is definitely a place where they want the best for you as not just an athlete, but as a man. Like, we're not a school, especially like I believe it because the guys that come in our locker room, it's easy to recruit just the best guys in the country, but then you come up with locker room issues where people that it's like the me before we versus in our locker room, Boise recruits guys that are all about the team more than themselves. And as you see, like Ashton, Ashton's a great player. I believe should win the Heisman. Everything he does, he deserves. But the thing about Ashton that people don't realize is he's the most selfless person on the field at all times. Because even though it'd be easy for him to truly just be like, well, I did this, I'm doing this. He goes, you don't get to 2,000 yards by yourself. He's like, we don't win those games without a team. He goes out there. He's honestly one of the hardest working players at practice, in the weight room. Like, crazy backside story about Ashton. I was looking at a video before we got here of him hitting like, it was over 600 on squat, easiest thing ever. But a lot of guys that are that great would be willing to be like, I'm not, like, I don't got to do all this. I'm already that good. But no, he pushes himself because he knows that the young guys here are looking at him. And it's like those young guys have the potential to be potentially the next Ashton Genty as long as they see the person in front of them trying to push themselves every day to get better. But like our coaches, like Coach D has changed our program to a place where he wants all guys that want to get 1% better every day. Because if everyone's trying to get better every day, you have a great team at the end of the day.
Absolutely. Yeah, thanks for those stories about Ashton, and you can certainly see it on the field, even towards the end of the season as defenses started to really load the box and make life a little bit more difficult. He just kept his head down, and it says a lot about him and his attitude towards the team, and I'm sure it played a crucial role in finishing the season strong with a lot of success. You talked about a little bit about your relationship with God. When did that start for you?
So I'd always been in the church. I grew up in the church. I was a part of the church choir growing up. My dad led it. But I think in my time where I truly got to know him would definitely be college, where I'd always had an idea of who he was. Like, I always knew he existed. There was never a doubt in my mind that God existed, but I think I started to actually let him become the true Lord of my life probably a little over a year ago is when I started to truly like listen to when he said, if you love me, obey my commandments. And I was like, well, I love you, Lord. But then I caught myself sometimes being like, I love you, but I want to do this. Like I think, so I think a little like blast, it would be, I think last season, October, a little bit before that, was honestly probably one of the hardest points in my life where it was like I faced like little stints of depression, a little stints of like just shame, guilt, like not feeling good enough, even though at this point in my career, I think at this point, I'd been playing more than I ever had. Like, I got the starting role, everything I'd worked for up to my junior year, I had it in my lap. But I had been fighting my own demons. I'd lost my grandma a couple days before the Memphis game, but I didn't find out until after, because my dad, he initially he was not going to go to that game, but then he was like, I'll see you there. So he told me there, and we lost to Memphis last year. So I cried a lot. And then at that point, I also had a girlfriend, and it was like she tried to fight my demons with me or for me, even at sometimes. And at that point, God had really just revealed himself to me. Like, truly in my lowest of lows, God continued to reveal himself to me. Like, in dreams, God had sent me to his word, where it was like, all right, like, I think he sent me to Colossians 3:23. And I was listening to, like we talked about, I was listening to Priscilla Shire that day, and she had spoke about something, consume the whole thing. Because I think as Christians, or people that believe, because I use the word Christians very like diligently now. As people that know God, it's like we like to take words of his word out of context and just apply them to our life. So she had said, no, don't do that, consume the whole thing. So like, even though Colossians 3:23 had been my Bible verse for like I lived my life by, she's like, nope, go back to the beginning of Colossians 3:23 and read. And actually, let's go to it real quick.
Let's do it.
And I'd go in, like, in the middle of my night, I went to Colossians 3, and I read it, and it, like, starts like this. If then you were raised with Christ, seek those things which are above, where Christ is sitting at the right hand of God. Set your mind on things above, not on things of the earth. For you died, and your life is hidden with Christ in God. When Christ, who is our life, appears, then you will appear with him in glory. Therefore put to death members which are on the earth: fornication, uncleanliness, passion, evil desire, covetousness, which is idolatry. And at that moment, like, you ever like played paintball, or like, I use paintball because, like, all right, cool, something that just hits, like, you get hit and it hits you hard. If I got shot by a paintball gun. So I was like, that one just hit. I'm like, wait, like, I was in bed next to, at the time, my girlfriend, and I'm like, wait, God, like, hold on, like, right now. I was like, all right, cool, not my time, but he, at this point, it's like, all right, cool, God hit me with that. So then, we had broken up, and then, I had honestly found brothers that were also trying to pursue the same thing. Like, we were also trying to pursue Christ, change our life to really know him and live our lives for him. And I'd kind of found him a little bit then, but then I still like kind of backslid a little bit. Kind of got back into relationship, found myself in the same like sexual like sins, like the lustful sins, and it came to a point. 'Cause at this point in life, I'd went through hip surgery, my first surgery ever. Life's kind of like life's hitting, because I'm like, I'm not playing spring ball, I'm not really working out. It feels like I'm not part of the team at times, and at this point, I kind of got caught in a crossroads where it's like, I either continue to do things the world's way and I get the world's consequences, or I do things God's way and I get the benefits and I get the promises that he has for me, and I live according to the Spirit and I just die to my flesh. So that's kind of where it led me to. So at that point, broke up again, decided, all right, cool, like, I want to do everything God's way to the best of my ability. Like, I want to accept the Holy Spirit upon me, in me, to try, like, because we all know, like, Romans, it says, for all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. It's because all the sins, like the 10 Commandments I go back to, you can't complete those without the Holy Spirit in you, because that's who cleans you. That's who's continuing to prune you. Like, I am the grapevine. If you abide in me, and I'll abide in you. That's what's making us try to live, like, that's what makes us able to live that life. But went on, ended up breaking up with that girl, which honestly, I'll say, like, was probably the hardest thing I've ever done. And I talked to you about it. It was not easy at all. Like, even to this day, it's still hard. But about a month or so after that, I had honestly been like, all right, cool, like, this is what I want to do. I want God. Like, everything else on this world is but a flicker. Like, it'll be here one day, gone the next, but God is eternal. He's the great prize. So April 20th, I had went and honestly made my own decision, because I'd been baptized when I was younger. But I'd made my own decision April 20th to get baptized. And from that point on, like, I won't say I've been perfect, but I think at the forefront of my life, Jesus has been the center. So it's like, even though I don't know all of him, because there's never, like Paul says, there's not that I have attained it, because there's no way to attain it until I'm at the feet of heaven and I'm looking at him face to face. There's no knowing all of him. But I think I press on into the promises that he has for me every day, even though some days it's one step forward and other days it's 10 steps forward. I think I continue to press forward rather than letting myself backslide.
Mm-hmm. And I'm going to take a second to pull up. I think we may have talked about this a few weeks ago, but it has to do with taking a few steps forward and like one step back. And there's a great promise there. So 2 Peter chapter 1, verses 3 through 9. Verse 3 is, his divine power has given us everything we need for a godly life through our knowledge of him who called us by his own glory and goodness. Though these he has given us very great and precious promises, so that through them you may participate in the divine nature, having escaped the corruption in the world caused by evil desires, which is actually touching on what you were just speaking of as far as making that decision between, am I going to live in the world or am I going to allow the Holy Spirit to work through me? Um, Verse 5, for this very reason, make every effort to add to your faith goodness, and to goodness knowledge, and to knowledge self-control, and to self-control perseverance, and to perseverance godliness, and to godliness mutual affection, and to mutual affection love. And then verse 8, which I feel, at least for me personally, is like one of my favorite promises in the Bible. So verse 8 is, for if you possess these qualities in increasing measure, they will keep you from being ineffective and unproductive in your knowledge of our Lord Jesus Christ. But whoever does not have them is nearsighted and blind, forgetting that they have been cleansed from their past sins. And so I think what's so special about verse 8 is it doesn't say, Shay, you've got to get it right. No more, you can't be taking 10 steps forward and 1 step back. It says, for if you possess these qualities in increasing measure. And so the way that I see that is just that, the Lord is calling us to, seek after him with all of our heart. And he doesn't expect perfection, but he promises that we will not stumble as long as we're, growing in increasing measure there.
So, I'm part, something you said there, it kind of, I like to look at the overlooming narrative, I think, of like our generation right now, which is, I think we're deceived by grace, right? Where God's grace is sufficient and we just we try to abuse it, right? And something you said there is like, seek after him with all your heart. I think it's, God knows our heart, right? So in those times we like continue pressing forward. It's all right, where's your heart at though? Because if your heart, it's like love, God is love. If I say I love you, my actions will show that because I'm going to do things that align with that. And like
when you asked me if I wanted anything from the gas station before this.
Oh yeah. Where it's like, all right, I'm looking out for you because like, all right, that's true love, like brotherly love. It's being willing to actually do the things that mean, okay, my actions match my words. Versus like, I think this has been like an idea in my mind, but I didn't really know it was a Bible verse until I started reading my Bible. It was like Romans 6:1. What shall we say then? Shall we continue in sin that grace may abound? Verse 2. Certainly not. How shall we who died to sin live any longer in it? And that kind of shook my world because like, if we truly died with Christ and he came and he's a true champion and we rose with him, like, why should we run back to something that no longer has any power over us? And it's kind of like the idea of, I think people feel what we are we're covered in flesh. But like my pastor at chapel said something like, it really hit me and it went over my head at first. He was like, it's like this, how a fish is in salt water, but when you eat it, it doesn't taste like salt. I was like, wow. So even though a fish is surrounded by, for us to be like, we're the fish, we're surrounded by sin, doesn't mean that we have to let it into us. And we have to be corrupt to it. And I was like, wow. We're called to be set apart for a reason. It's like, oh, wow. So even though you're in a world full of darkness, you don't have to be darkness. Ironically, we have a team shirt that he made us where it's like, says 1 Peter 2:9, which, let me make sure, I don't like to misquote the Bible. Yeah, I'll read it from this version. But you are a chosen race, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, a people for his own possession, that you may proclaim the excellencies of him who called you out of darkness into his marvelous light. And it's like, wow. So that's a big part. But I think there's another part where it's like the Bible really comes full circle. And I was in a Bible study and I read this, and it's like, it kind of helps you to know the enemy you're up against with the temptations. And this is Jesus talking, red letters. And he goes, I will no longer talk much with you, for the ruler of this world is coming, and he has nothing in me. And I read that and it shook my whole world because it was like, if Jesus is talking and saying, the ruler of this world is coming and he has nothing in me, Jesus acknowledges that there is an enemy and that the devil is, he's lurking. The devil wants to get you, he wants to tempt you to get away from Jesus, but Jesus, who came as the example of what we could do as man in our flesh, came and showed us that he has nothing in me. Like, the devil has nothing in me because I am filled with the Holy Spirit. I am God. I have the power of God, and the same spirit, the same power that rose him up from the grave, that defeated death, hell, and death, sin, and the grave, is still working within us. And it empowers us where it's like, we don't have to choose sin. Temptation's gonna come, but it also says he won't tempt you out, like, he won't tempt you out of your capability. Like, he's not gonna overly tempt you. He's gonna be like, oh yeah, you got this, and this. It's also like, whoa, God goes before me and behind me. He's all around me. So in a situation where I'm feeling tempted, instead of looking at all the temptations, sometimes it's really take a pause and look up and be like, all right, God, God, please. Like just I think getting into prayer in the moments of your true temptation where you don't know what to do is your best, but also what is God like? What does he say? Flee, run. Like, if you don't have to be there, don't even don't play with it. Because I think sometimes we like to try and make sin like a pet. Like, we like to be like, oh, my pet sin, like I have it under control. But no, like, sin is, like we say, sin is like a serpent where it's like, yeah, it's coming to get you. There is no, I have my sin under control. Because once you give, I think we all know this, you give him an inch, he's going to take a mile. You can't give the devil a foothold in your life. So when you see the temptation, it's like, I have learned for me, a lot of it just comes down to, if I know I'm going to be tempted, or if I know that there's a situation that I might fall back into my old ways, it's just sometimes just like, all right, you're better off staying home and missing out on that moment than to go somewhere where you might, I say regret, because like we've all, like we said, for all sin and fall short. Like, yeah, Jesus knows I'm not perfect and that my heart's for him and I fell. But if I can prevent myself and put up boundaries, protect myself from potentially something I am going to regret and having that shame try to come upon me, that's kind of how I have to go about some things.
Hmm. A few weeks ago, an older gentleman was praying for me actually, and he prayed, Lord, do not allow an entry point of sin into Jacob's heart. And it was really powerful to me because I just kind of had this vision of like a tunnel like leading to my heart. And I feel like a lot of times we have, like you said, like it might be like, going out one night with your teammates or something where it's like there's that tunnel to that place, and it's not necessarily that it's wrong to go to that place, but sometimes when you eliminate like that entry point, like if you don't walk through that tunnel, there is no entry point, and then you're not even going there. And so I think that can be a healthy thing to like kind of visualize when it comes down to making some decisions that might be fun and might create some fun memories, but if it sets us back and takes us away from who we are called to be, because we're called to be the light of this world, and you can't be the light if you're like living in the world. So my next question for you is, what are some of the daily practices that you have spiritually, whether it be listening to music, praying, reading your Bible, doing a devotional?
I think some of my daily practices start off like my first 20 to 30 minutes of the day are like my most pivotal, where it starts off where I get out of bed and I'm just I'm admiring God for who he is. I'm worshiping him, whether it be like my morning starts usually early for practice, and I kind of change my morning up so I make that time to just worship Him. So I get up, I pray, I get in the shower, and I just start worshiping. Like I'm that person like singing in the shower. Yeah, I'm singing to the God, like the God of the universe in that shower, putting my heart at a place where when I go throughout this day, I can at least put Him at the forefront. So then another thing I try to do is all the music I listen to. I I've done a pretty good job this year where I think 90 I would say 98% of the music I listen to is Christian music to worship God. Like I've learned that what I put in my ears matters, and that I found that some of the other music I listen to, it does change my mood. And then I've started to learn where like all right, Lucifer was the worship leader in heaven. So he's seen what the power of music is. He's seen God's face light up when we worship Him. So he knows if he can take that exact same music and start to turn it and pervert it in a way, he knows what the power does to turn your soul, turn your heart towards things other than God. So that's another practice. I do my absolute best to try and read my Bible every day, whether that be uh, listening to it in the car ride on a busy day, making sure I open it and do my like deep. I'm really big on when I open my Bible, it's got to be a study. Like I like to read it, but I want to study it. I want to know it. Like I want to know the deepest details of it and be able to learn what's the Bible really trying to say. Especially like I'm in the Old Testament. The Old Testament has so many intricacies that's like if you don't take the time to like either read a commentary or look up the questions, look up the at that point Aramaic, Hebrew meaning of the word, you're missing a bigger picture and you're just seeing it for what I see right now. And it's like the Bible's not easy to understand. So I try to make sure I take time to either find like a sermon in my ears where it's like, all right, we're deep diving the Bible. I found a lot of pastors that exegete passages so well where it's if I don't have time to actually like physically open my own Bible, that okay, I'm gonna take notes on what they're saying from that passage, and I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna read it and be like, oh wow, this got my attention. This is cool. Like I think I was listening to a pastor at Athey Creek, and we were going through Acts, and it was kind of crazy because like the week prior, I'd been reading Acts on the bus. Like before a game, I read my Bible, and it's like I kind of go like this: God, where you want to be? Like, I let my Bible open, and it's like every verse that it opens to is like, I'm like, all right, cool. So that's the verse. I like that verse, but what's the chapter saying? I go back, I find out all the meaning of it. I'm like, oh, all right, God. So this is my prayer point. So then that's a big part. Like church podcasts, I'm always rewatching church, whether it be I'm a digital disciple, like 8 different churches, I think. And I make sure I take time to like watch every single one. Like I think I had 11, basically 12,000 minutes of podcasts listened to on Spotify this past year. So I'm really consistent about taking my notes on like church podcasts and learning from uh, people that know more than me. Prayer before bed, that's vital. I've started to put sticky notes on the back of my door for the people I'm praying for, where it's like, all right, like I think you get caught up in the day and you like get caught. I think you get caught up in your prayer sometimes for yourself at times, and it's like I look up my wall and I'm like, all right, cool. I have people. I have a community of people that are praying for me that I need to be praying for because they have prayer points. Or like whenever I have a bad day, a big thing for me is to make sure I ask people, hey, how can I be praying for you? Because to look outside myself helps me to be able to see what God's really doing, not just in my life, but through other people's lives. Uh, I think that's most of my daily practices. And then like game day practices. Uh, Honestly, like I don't think a lot of people know this, but I've been really like blessed with the ability or with the privilege of being able to pray over our team before every game, like home and away. I've like all now 13 games. I've been blessed to be able to pray with them before we go out on the field, and it's kind of like I've learned so much about God through that prayer because you feel the spiritual warfare when you're praying for all these people because you feel all of a sudden you feel the anxiety that someone's having. You don't know who it is in that room. You feel the fear that they have, the inadequacy sometimes they have, and you have. I know in that moment, I have the power to command, like, and honestly intercede for them. That Holy Spirit come in them, like come into them, fill them with your Holy Spirit, Lord. Like every feeling of in like iniquity, that they're not enough, shame, guilt, fear, anxiety, cast it out, fill them with power, a sound mind, to be able to go out there and execute. And it's been a blessing because like some days I catch myself like getting aggressive in my prayers where I'm like truly like I feel like I'm really fighting. I'm really fighting. I'm like, all right, cool. That devil, you're not gonna get my team today. You're not gonna get my people today. And it's like cool. And I think every week I'd gone to church on Tuesdays with a solid group of people where I don't know, like that moment of worship has been cool to go like with just other young adults and just sit in that room of worship. And sometimes at those times it's just like God kind of just stops me in my tracks and starts to speak. And he'll look like I think like we've all had that moment like when you're like in that moment of like his presence and you don't know what the person next to you is going through, but he just says, "Hey, pray." And it just like I found myself on my knees crying sometimes just because I think another thing I'm always praying for our generation because I think whenever I like am looking out at the world, I'm heartbroken in the fact of so many people that don't truly have that relationship with him or that don't truly know him. And it, even like right now, it really breaks my heart because they don't have an idea of the true champion that he even is and how much more that he has for them than they have for themselves. Or they don't even know that in the valley that they're in, because we all are going through the same thing. It rains on the just and the unjust. That he, like in their weakness right now, they're as weak as they could be. He's made strong, but you have like to seek his face, just seek him, and yeah, like that's a big thing for me, especially in my daily practices. Like I just want everyone to just seek that, like seek Jesus with all they have, because like I know you've read Ecclesiastes where it's just like everything that we're so worried about in the world, like money, fame, notoriety, all these things at the end of the day don't matter.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like you kind of watch the world try to make idols of it all. And like, I have to get off my phone. That's one thing in practice I have to get better at. Get off my phone. Because you see all these people put themselves out there to chase the bag, to do, like, to be the most famous, whatever it is. And it's like you're missing, like, you're putting all your faith in this rather than the one thing that's never going to fail. So, yeah, kind of.
Mm-hmm. What is it like to play for Coach Danielson?
This is his quote, and he knows, like, if he sees this, he'll know every time we see each other, we go God's favor. Like, every time he sees me, like, I think we know, like, how everyone talks about aura. Like, nowadays, every time he sees me or, like, I see him, he'll be like, ooh, I knew God's favor was around. Like, he'll be like, I knew God's favor was around. And that's just who he is. I don't have it on because I accidentally cut it off after the game when I was cutting my tape off. But he has a wristband. It says, love Jesus, treat people right, and work hard. Those are the things he wrote down on a board in his room when he was a DC here. Now that he's a head coach, he lives by him still today, and he walks them out. Like, I don't say to perfection because there is no perfection, but you see it in him. The fruit which he bears is truly that of which is a man after God's truly own heart. He cares about us as a team. Like, he loves his players, and to truly like know that your head coach loves you makes you want to play harder for him. So he's like, to play for him, he's like a father figure. He's a brother at some, like, he's an older brother sometimes. He's a father figure sometimes. When you see him with his daughter, he's an amazing father. His wife, Rachel, love her. She's always like, they're always around, and when you're around them, you just feel loved, you feel seen, you feel cared for. His brother, his parents, like, he's a praying man. Like, he truly wants to put Jesus at the center of everything he does, and regardless of what it is, he's gonna do it. Like, he is unapologetic for his faith. So to play for him and have my own faith be growing allows me to now be a man, or to know what it looks like for a man to walk out their faith boldly, regardless of what the world thinks, or if people want to hate on you, or if they think it's corny or tacky. He's the true maker of godly men if you allow him to work, because he wants to impact you and get you towards Jesus. Like, I think we had, and it was over 10 guys were baptized right after fall camp this past year. Prior to this year, we didn't have the opportunity for that to happen, but him opening up the opportunity for chapel, for taking guys to church. Like, our Sundays are basically off because he values, I want you guys to go to church. I want the opportunity for you to go to church. If that's your thing, I want you to go. If that's not your thing, I'm praying for you that you decide one day to go. And he's willing to pray for you. He's willing to pray with you. He's willing to guide you on what it takes, where you might be falling. So as like iron sharpening iron, cool, like, at this point, we're all grown men when we walk in this building. Sometimes it takes him being the father figure where, tell me I'm wrong. Sometimes it's the brother figure where it's, I've been here. I know where it's going to lead you. You don't got to go. You don't have to go that way. Mm-hmm. Then on the field, he's the most passionate person. He's also, like, if you watch every one of Ashton's long runs, he's celebrating for his team more than anybody. Like, I'm praying he don't get hurt. I hope he stretches at least. He's sprinting down the sideline with Ashton as Ashton's breaking down long runs, and it's like, you're not playing college football anymore. But yeah, he's an exceptional man, a person that I'll always be calling, and he'll definitely be at my wedding one day. Like, one of my favorite people ever.
Mm-hmm. Many people know Ashton football. Do that again. Many people know Ashton Jenney, the Heisman candidate. What can you say about Ashton Jenney, the follower of Jesus?
Faithful. Like, I had the opportunity of being able to be there when he got baptized this past summer, and being able to pray with him before, and being able to see him truly just seek the Lord. Like, I think people just see the Heisman and see the great running back, but the person I see is the great teammate that just tries to walk out his faith as best as he knows how. He's someone that's just continuing to grow and continue to be that light in the best way he knows how. Like, sometimes I think we all have our own different callings in the way that God wants to use us to proclaim his kingdom. His is being the best running back in the country, and he embodies that because he knows God gave him the ability, and he acknowledges God gave him the ability. So to be able to see him, like, as my locker neighbor, I'm able to ask him questions about, hey, how's life going? And he's open, and he's always trying to take the next step into his faith. And it's been an honor to honestly just be able to see him grow into a man of God, slowly, like, not slowly but surely, but at God's timing, because he comes and gets us at our own time.
Mm-hmm. As you prepare for the team prepares for what's ahead here, you've got a little bit of time off awaiting the winner of Penn State and Southern Methodist. What do you see in each of those teams? And what does preparation look like now that you have a few weeks off?
I think for us, they're both good teams. I think every team in this college football playoff has a chance of potentially being a national champion. And that's something that we all have to look at and take everyone seriously, because if you decide to take a day off or sleep on a team because of the conference at which they came from or their past history, we always look at it like this. Don't go back and watch their worst game. Go back and watch their best game, because that's the team that you're going to see. So in both those teams, as we prepare, our coaches are going to prepare for both of them, because those two, when they play that game, it's going to be a grudge match. So it's going to be cool to see who comes out on top, but I'm going to have to watch both teams equally until the winner of that game is decided, and then it's going to be okay, hone in into that one team and prepare for them like it is the national championship, because at this point, every game is win or go home. So how our coaches have been emphasizing playing championship football from week one, now it's time to play championship football, because the day that we don't play that championship football will be the day that we can be upset.
Mm-hmm. So what are some things outside of football that you enjoy doing?
I'm boring, and I own it. I'm a very, I call myself an old man that I've had to grow to be, because I used to be, I used to like to be all around everywhere, and then two things happened. COVID made gas really expensive, so going places became kind of expensive. But I love bowling. I really do love bowling. Uh, I do enjoy shooting guns. I I love youth groups. I love going out and talking about God, talking about the Bible. That's honestly probably my favorite thing to do, because I'm always just trying to learn something. And then probably my favorite thing to do outside of football is probably play basketball, which I haven't had to play. I haven't gotten to play in a while, because I had a wrist surgery this past October, so the jumper's probably a little broke right now. um, but yeah, it's kind of a big thing. I like to spend time with my friends and family. I love eating food, steak to be specific. Steakhouses are the epitome of my bank account. They take a lot of my money. Uh, Another thing I've kind of I have another opportunity to go a lot, but I love being able to impact the youth. I had the opportunity to be a junior high leader at my church. I had the opportunity to talk to this high school group out here, where I'd also made a connection with a bunch of great people that are trying to impact this next generation and truly grow them into God's people and lead them down the path that's going to allow them to make that decision themselves once they're truly grown. What else do I like to do?
I don't think you're very boring. You got a lot going on
See,
there.
I think I call myself boring because for the most part, a lot of the things I get to do are at the house. I love playing. I love playing. This is new because I got my cast off. I love playing Call of Duty. Me and that game are we're besties right now. I've learned to be able to balance, if I play Call of Duty during the day, that means Bible study has to happen at night. Or if I do Bible study during the day, I get to play Call of Duty for a little bit at night, because both activities take 1 to potentially 3 hours. So it's all right, I can't play Call of Duty and play Call of Duty for 3 hours. I can't. That's 6 hours of Call of Duty. At that point, you gotta get your word in. So that's kind of my balance. Me and bowling, we have an on and off relationship, because are you big into bowling?
A little bit, not big into
So
it, but I know how to play.
so see, me and my little brother have back home. Shout out Brennan. We really got into bowling recently, and he kind of taught like he got really into it because he started watching like pros. So I really learned how to be able to tell if a lane is properly oiled or not. So like I was bowling last night and the lanes were not oiled, and I played the worst I'd ever played because I'd be watching like Mookie Betts bowl. Like he has that nice spin where it starts dancing on the line and then it like turns, it picks up speed and it takes out and it's a strike.
Are
And
you a Dodgers guy or just a Mookie Betts
I just
bowling
watch
kind of
Mookie
guy?
Betts because it's kind of crazy how he's good at all these sports,
Yeah.
and it's you know, I just like imitation is the best form of flattery. He's bowled a 300. I'm trying to bowl a 300. So if I could try and get like, all right, he's going like this spin, but yeah, yesterday the lanes weren't oiled, so the whole spinning thing wasn't a thing. So I had to bowl straight, which that's not how you're supposed to bowl, in my opinion. But so me and Bowling have an on-off relationship. Me and Call of Duty have been on for a good little minute. Me and Bible study are always on because I'm a low-key theological nerd. Like I found myself like I graduate in a couple days, and I don't think I'll ever take another college class again. But I would go back to do like some theology school, just to be like, all right, cool, the Bible. Whoa, that's what they were talking about. That'd be cool. Um, I think then basketball, but I haven't played basketball in a minute. So basically, everything I do is in the house. Uh, I eat burger. I go to the same burger spot every week. Crazy enough, I went there yesterday, and they were like, you want the regular?" And I was like, "I'm here way too much."
You're on regular status.
And the thing is, like, I'm picky when I eat, like, especially like a burger. I don't like eat cheese, right? So I take things off this burger, I add things to this burger. She's like, "You want the regular?" I'm like, "The regular? You know my order?" I'm thinking they're gonna mess it up. No, they got it
No.
right.
What is your message to Bronco Nation?
Thank you, Bronco Nation. 4 years, uh, and this place went from a place that was foreign to me to a place I'll forever call home. The Blue is a place that I'll never forget having the privilege and blessings of being able to play on there in front of them and their endless support. Though times were good, bad, ugly, they came out, they showed out, they made their noise, they supported us through and through. And the best is honestly still yet to come. That the season's not over. We want to go and do something that's never been done before. And at the end of the day, like, you have a team that wants to do it all for the glory of God, like it truthfully wants to do it and give God all the glory. So I hope to see you guys in Arizona for the Fiesta Bowl. Pack it out like we do our own home stadium so that as we do what we plan to do, we can shake up the nation and let everyone know where Boise's at.
Love to hear it. Well, Shay, thanks so much for your time today and joining us. We wish you all the best in the playoffs and beyond.
Man, thank you, Jacob.